Move it back a little. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, we hear a lot about rap sheets these days. We hear of a lot of young people being defined by simple brushes with the law. But for this man, Billy Frank Jr., his story was so much more than the crimes for which he was arrested, not convicted, I might add. His rap sheet, and Martin Luther King's rap sheet, and Rosa Parks' rap sheet, and Congressman John Lewis's rap sheet are just a piece of a larger narrative about the struggle for social justice. Billy Frank Jr. was the Pacific Northwest foremost advocate for the restoration of Native American fishing treaty rights, a dream he lived and saw realized. He cherished clean water and salmon, and he was a key voice in the recovery of the Puget Sound, the largest estuary in the United States of America. Billy was also a proud patriot. He served in the United States Marine Corps, where, ironically, he was a member of the military police. Billy passed away a year ago, May 5th, but he really isn't gone. His story is here in the halls of Congress, for which he was so often seen and which he roamed on behalf of his beloved causes, including protecting the Puget Sound and our fisheries and the cause of clean water. His story is in the Nisqually Wildlife Refuge, which we now protect to give our wildlife a clean and sustainable place to live, and which was made possible by a great former member of the United States House of Representatives, Norm Dix. Billy was born and raised and grew up at Frank's Landing, which was literally just a hop, skip, and a jump from the Wildlife Refuge, and it's where his family lived for perhaps thousands of years. He fished in the Nisqually River, which snakes through the Nisqually Wildlife Refuge, and that's the location of where he was arrested more than a dozen times. Well, okay, it was actually 59 times. The bill I introduced this week, H.R. 2270, will rename that refuge after Billy Frank Jr., and it will also make the place of the signing of the Treaty of the Medicine Creek a National Historic Site. It will make sure that the story of that site is told, especially by the descendants of those that lived that history. Those tribes will be involved in the development and the understanding behind that site and what it means to them now and before. Billy was often asked, how do you do this? How do you effectively advocate on behalf of clean water and salmon, as he did over so many decades? And Billy always had the same answer. He would say, tell your story. Tell your story. So when people go to the Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually Wildlife Refuge, they'll be able to see why he held fish-ins. They'll see why he risked arrest so many times. They'll see why he ultimately worked with others to help protect his home and the home of the fish. They'll see why he did all these things. Like many young people today, he fought for what he believed in. And later in his life, he worked with lawmakers to build consensus. In fact, he was a master consensus builder. How do I know this? Well, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He actually won the extremely prestigious Albert Schweitzer Humanitarian Award. He has had not one but 2 books written about him. So my hope is that when people drive by the sign that directs them to the refuge, maybe they'll feel a little bit of that Billy Frank Jr. magic. Maybe they'll wonder who he was and what he did and find out about his story. For those of us who knew him, it will be a great reminder of a hero. In fact, I would count Billy Frank Jr., a man I knew many decades and loved, as more than a hero. He was truly a great man. He was the Pacific Northwest equivalent of Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr. or Desmond Tutu. That's how great a man he was. Here's what Billy said. I don't believe in magic. I believe in the sun and the stars, the water, the tides, the floods, the owls, the hawks flying, the river running, the wind talking. They're measurements. They tell us how healthy things are. Because we and they are the same. That's what I believe in. Those who learn to listen to the world that sustains them can hear the message brought forth by the salmon. Billy Frank Jr. and his stories have to be told. And that's why I invite my colleagues today to join in co-sponsorship of H.R. 2270. Join me and all the members of the Washington State House delegation, and Mr. Cole and Ms. McCollum, the co-chairs of the Native American Caucus, in co-sponsoring the Billy Frank Jr. Tell Your Story Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair